1952, the McCarthy era. Fear permeated every street in America. But one librarian's silence was stronger than that fear. My name is James Whitman. I've spent decades documenting stories no one wanted to remember, the quiet acts of defiance that history almost forgot. Her name was Eleanor Hartwell, 53 years old, unmarried, living on Elm Street in a small Connecticut town. She'd worked at Riverside Public Library for 27 years. The children called her Miss Eleanor. She always wore the same navy cardigan and smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. I noticed how her hands never stayed still. People who carry heavy memories often keep their hands busy, as if still negotiating with the past. In 1952, America was gripped by fear. Senator McCarthy had turned the hunt for communists into a national obsession. Neighbor suspected neighbor. Books were being removed from shelves. Some were burned. The Riverside Library sat on Main Street, between Howard Johnson's and the Baptist Church. Back then, a library card cost nothing. A cup of coffee at the diner was 10 cents. A pack of Lucky Strikes, 25 cents. But access to certain ideas, that could cost you everything. Eleanor's routine was precise. Every morning at 7:30, she'd unlock the heavy oak doors and check the card catalog, those wooden drawers with brass handles, each containing hundreds of index cards. Because cards were disappearing. Every few weeks, a new list arrived from the library board. Materials deemed subversive or un-American. The first time, Eleanor called the chairman. She asked what made a book subversive. He told her it wasn't her job to ask questions. She hung up and pulled the first book from the shelf, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. She held it, feeling its worn binding. Someone had left a pressed violet between the pages. Eleanor didn't take it to the discard pile. She took it to her office and opened the bottom drawer of her desk. If silence could talk, what would it say about your life? Over 6 months, that drawer filled. Native Son, 1984. Books on labor unions, socialism, even poetry by Langston Hughes. 23 books total. Eleanor kept a secret card catalog, written by hand in pencil. She noted each title, the date removed, who'd borrowed it last. She was building an archive of erasure. No one knew. Not the board. Not her assistant Margaret. Not even her sister Ruth. But secrets in small towns breathe. They slip through cracks, travel on whispers. And someone was watching. His name was William Porter. Late 40s, clean-shaven, gray suit. He'd moved to town 3 months earlier, a traveling insurance salesman, he said. He rented a room above the drugstore. He came to the library every Thursday. Eleanor noticed him the first week. Polite, quiet. He'd browse the history section but never checked anything out. People who browse but never borrow are either uncertain or searching for something specific. On his 4th visit, he asked if the library had books on Soviet economics. She looked at him carefully. His eyes were steady, unreadable. We did. They've been removed. Why? Library board decision. He nodded slowly. Do you agree with that? Eleanor's hands went still. It's not my place to agree or disagree, sir. He smiled, a knowing smile that made her chest tighten. Of course. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. When did doubt become dangerous? The next Thursday, Porter returned. This time he walked directly to her desk. Miss Hartwell, do you believe books can be dangerous? Her pulse quickened. The library was nearly empty. I believe books contain ideas, and ideas can make people uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, he repeated. Or awake? Where do you still bleed? even quietly. Eleanor looked down at her trembling hands. "Is there something specific you're looking for, Mr. Porter?" He leaned forward, voice low. "I'm looking for the truth, and I think you might know where to find it." Before she could respond, Margaret bustled in with books from the bindery. "Miss Eleanor." "Oh, hello." She beamed at Porter. He straightened, tipped his hat, and left. Through the window, Eleanor watched him cross the street. That's when she noticed the black sedan parked across from the library. 2 men sat inside, watching. And that's when she realized she wasn't protecting books anymore. She was protecting herself. 3 days later, the library board called an emergency meeting, Friday evening. Subject: compliance review and inventory audit. Her hands shook as she read it. That afternoon, she went to church. Father O'Brien found her in the back pew. "Eleanor, are you all right?" "Father, if you knew something was wrong, but speaking up would cost you everything, what would you do?" He sat beside her. "What kind of wrong?" "The quiet kind. The kind people don't want to see." He was silent. "The hardest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself, not just the ones who think like you, all of them, even the ones who want to silence you." Eleanor looked up at the cross above the altar. What if loving them means betraying something else? Then you have to decide what you can live with and what you can't. That night, Eleanor opened the bottom drawer. 23 books stared back at her. What she did next would determine not just her future, but the future of every word inside that drawer. Friday came too quickly. The conference room was set up like an interrogation. 6 chairs in a semicircle facing one. For her, the board members arrived at 6. Chairman Caldwell, Vice Chair Henderson, the bank manager, school principal, hardware store owner, and William Porter. Sitting in the back with a notebook, Eleanor's blood turned to ice. "Miss Hartwell," Caldwell began, "we've received concerns regarding inventory discrepancies. 23 books were ordered removed. We have disposal slips for only 7. The room went silent. "Where are the other 16 books?" The truth sat in her throat like a stone. She could lie, say they'd been misplaced, stolen, but lies have weight, and she was tired of carrying weight. "They're in my office." Someone gasped. "You kept them?" Caldwell's voice rose. "After being explicitly ordered to remove them?" "Yes." "Why?" Eleanor looked at each face, people she'd known for years, people whose children she'd helped with school reports, people who'd attended her mother's funeral. "Because someday someone will want to read them again, and they deserve to know what we tried to erase." William Porter stood up. "Miss Hartwell, I'm Agent Porter, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've been investigating reports of communist sympathizing in this community." The room tilted. "Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Communist Party?" "No." "Do you sympathize with communist ideologies?" "I sympathize," Eleanor said, voice stronger now, "with the right to read. Even when those books promote ideas contrary to American values?" "Who decides what American values are?" Agent Porter's jaw tightened. Caldwell stood. "Miss Hartwell, you are suspended pending investigation. Surrender your keys immediately." Eleanor pulled out her key ring. 27 years reduced to a few pieces of metal. She placed them on the table, but before she walked out, she said something that would echo for decades. "Books don't burn truth. They just burn paper. The truth lives here." She touched her temple. "And here. She touched her heart. And you can't burn that. She walked out into the November cold. Behind her, she heard Porter say, "We'll need to confiscate those books as evidence." But what happened next morning changed everything. At 6:15 a.m., Margaret called, crying, "Miss Eleanor, the library, there's been a fire." Eleanor ran. Fire trucks surrounded the building. Smoke poured from second-floor windows. The oak doors were charred black. Chief Morrison stood on the sidewalk. "Started in your office. Around 3 a.m., accelerant detected. Arson." Eleanor couldn't breathe. Her office, the bottom drawer, 23 books, gone. She stood there, numb, watching firefighters spray water into the building. Everything she'd tried to save, destroyed. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder. Mrs. Peterson stood beside her, holding something, a book. The Grapes of Wrath. "I heard what you did," she whispered. "This is my copy. I want to help." Within an hour, more people arrived. Mr. Rodriguez with native son, the high school teacher, the mechanic, the flower shop owner. By noon, 30 people stood in front of the burned library, each holding a book. Books Eleanor had tried to save. Books they'd kept in their own homes, hidden, preserved. The newspaper photographer showed up. Click, click, click. That photograph ran the next day. Then the Hartford Courant picked it up. Then the Boston Globe. Within a week, it was national news. Agent Porter left town quietly. No charges filed. The official report called the fire accidental. But everyone knew. 8 months later, the library reopened. New floors, new shelves, more light than before. And Eleanor Hartwell stood behind the circulation desk, wearing her navy cardigan. The board had quietly reversed her suspension. No apology issued. But her keys were returned. On opening day, Mayor Thompson gave a speech about resilience. He didn't mention the fire or the books. But when Eleanor stepped forward to cut the ribbon, someone started clapping. Then another. Then another. It built like rain becoming a storm. They clapped until their hands hurt. Inside, on the front display table, sat 23 books. The Grapes of Wrath. Native Son. 1984. All of them. Donated by the community. Cataloged. Stamped. Ready to be borrowed. Eleanor ran her fingers over the spines and allowed herself to cry. But here's what no one knew until years later. That photograph of 30 citizens holding books, it traveled further than anyone imagined. In 1954, a young lawyer in Alabama saw it. His name was Fred Gray. 2 years later, he'd represent Rosa Parks. In 1958, a college student in North Carolina clipped it from a newspaper. His name was John Lewis. He kept it in his wallet through every protest, every beating, every march. In 1962, a librarian in Birmingham refused to remove books about integration. When the mayor threatened her, she showed him Eleanor's photograph. She kept her job. One woman, one drawer, 30 people with courage. That's how change begins. I met Eleanor in 1987. She was 88, still living on Elm Street. She showed me that key ring, metal worn smooth. "Do you regret it?" I asked. She thought for a long moment. "I regret that it had to be a choice at all." Eleanor died in 1991. Her obituary mentioned 42 years of service. It didn't mention the fire. It didn't mention the photograph. Because some stories are still too uncomfortable to remember. But I remember. What would you protect, even if it cost you everything? Eleanor answered with her life. And somewhere, on a shelf you might visit tomorrow, her answer waits. If you lived through those years, You remember the fear, the silence, the cost of speaking up. What's your story? What did your family carry through those times? Share it below. These stories deserve to be told.